go.
Impeccable timing.
So all of us are here. We're reconvening and we're looking forward to an update on the Five Oaks Museum. So please come forward.
Full disclosure, Chair, I'm parking in your parking spot. I kind of like it better than mine.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Ann Ober. I'm an Assistant County Administrator here. Today, I'm joined by Greg Wyman, our Facilities Division Director, and Laurel Brown, our Facilities Fleet and Parks Department Director. We're here to talk about the Five Oaks Museum and to provide you an update on the current workings of the museum. So the purpose today is to talk about a situation that has arisen with the Five Oaks Museum over the course of the last few months. In December, we were made aware that the museum was having funding disruptions and was unable to continue operations. In January, at the end, middle of January, the staff were furloughed. And we've been working through what this means for the county for both a building that the museum is currently housed in, as well as for our collection. Today, we're going to talk about that relationship. First and foremost, we're going to talk about the property. We're going to speak about the relationship to Portland Community College at the Rock Creek campus, as well as to the Five Oaks Museum. We're going to talk about what is housed within those walls, what the county's obligation should the museum cease to exist, and any potential financial impacts. We included a couple of photos today just to explain a little bit about the museum. This building is housed on the PCC campus at Rock Creek. They have an area for the public where they put up displays. I found it actually to be quite lovely when we went through there a few months ago, and they do rotate through the collection. The back of house, which is not pictured here, is a large warehousing space. So they have an area in which they have written records as well as itemized objects for the collection.
So good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Greg Wyman. I'm the Facilities Division Manager, and I'm going to pick up and just talk about the background and history of the museum and just the lease mechanics of it. So in 1979, the county entered into a 50-year ground lease agreement with Portland Community College for that certain property on PCC Rock Creek campus, and they constructed the museum. So the county did construct it at their cost. The term expires on June 30th, 2028, with the right to extend for an additional 50 years of term, and our rent is a minimal or a nominal $1 per year. The county funded the initial construction, as I said, and then a subsequent expansion of the building. The county owns the building through the ground lease duration and any extension thereof. And if the lease is terminated, the ownership of the building then would refer back to PCC as the ground owner out there. In 1987, there was an agreement it's a three-party agreement between the county, the Washington County Historical Society, which is now called Five Oaks Museum, and Portland Community College. That agreement transferred the building, the fixtures, the collection to the Historical Society so long as they operated the facility as a museum. If the Historical Society ceases to operate that as a museum or be open to the public, the county may, but is not obligated to terminate the lease. The furniture, fixtures, and collections then would revert to the county. The Historical Society maintains the building envelope and all the systems serving that, so that essentially means that they take care of everything on the interior of the building, pay for all the utilities and all the operating costs out there. And then PCC maintains the surrounding grounds and parking lots as part of their Rock Creek campus. And I'll turn it back over to Ann.
So in December of 2024, we were contacted by museum staff to inform us that they were being furloughed and that the museum board leadership was initiating a emergency measures process. We have met with the board leadership on a number of occasions at this point just to understand the situation and how the museum is being managed in place. According to their budget that was adopted, it runs at about $600,000 a year. The county does provide a contribution every year to the museum. We do that through the lottery funds. This past year, that allocation was for, it's not on the slide. It was about 147,000, I believe, $150,000. That was a decrease from the 23-24 allocation. And we are currently looking at whether or not we include that in this upcoming budget cycle.
What was it in prior years?
So if you look at the prior years,
Got it.
yeah, it's on there, but I
Sorry,
believe,
thank you.
yep. So I want to be clear that this is not a full list of what is included in the museum archives. This is just our assessment as to what we can expect when we go out to look at the facility. We do believe that there are about 14,000 written items that we're going to have to manage, probably 20,000-ish photographs, but these are definitely ish numbers. There is an archival software that currently is used at the museum. We were made aware by a board member that that archival system had not been updated recently, and there was a plan to update it to the cloud. I have spoken with the two board chairs about that cost. It's about $1,600 to move all of the archives in as an assessment into the cloud. They have confirmed to me that they are planning on making that move. But to be clear, that software is for Five Oaks Museum and is not owned or operated by the county. And so we would need special permission in order to access that system. It's not listed on here, but when we talk about the items at the museum over the last 5 years, there has been a significant effort made by museum staff to cull duplicative or extra items out of the collection and to really focus on the things that do have value. So as an example, they've had a lot of phones over the years, different types of phones from different periods of time. They've been calling the collection. It's pretty approachable right now because of how they've been managing that, but there is still more work to do. This collection also includes things like a covered wagon from the bicentennial. So there are objects that are very large inside of the warehouse and then objects that are very small, as well as the written and paper documents that I've already discussed. On the short list of materials, I just wanted to clarify that the things that are on the right hand, not bolded side, are actually places where we could go work with a partner in order to take portions of the collection if needed. These are not a statement that they would or should. I did meet today with the Oregon Historical Society and had a conversation with them about how we would go through this process of assessing, but also dissolving the collection should that be the path that we end up going down. And they were reinforcing that they felt strongly nonprofits should be given access to those items in advance of anything being sold or distributed in any other way. So the county obligations for retention, when it comes to the actual physical paper copies and photos, there are some items that will need to be retained permanently. Unfortunately, at this time, we do not know what is in the collection or the breadth of that. When we asked Joe Nelson to assess how many boxes we would need to take to Iron Mountain, that is our retention service location. He thought it was probably about $10,000 a year's worth of boxes that we would need to retain at that site if we were going to store them while we went through an assessment process.
Point of clarification here.
Please.
I think we're talking about two different things. We're talking about artifacts
Correct.
and then also storage of
Paper.
that's been generated by Washington County for Washington County purposes. Is that
Correct.
correct?
It is.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're clear about the separation of those two issues.
Well, and in our original agreement, it became a little muddied. So we did ask county council to look in what does constitute a record that we have to retain versus what constitutes an item that we do not have to retain. We can own a product without having to keep it in long term. But for some of our written records, namely written records, we do have an obligation to retain them in some cases indefinitely. For the other items, these are considered personal property and we would have to declare it surplus property if we were not going to own it as the county any longer and we were going to distribute it to others. That is an option in this case. And on the slide, we outlined what the value would be if you wanted to disperse. We, as a team, have assessed that the value of the total collection is well over $300,000. That means that we would be bringing any items to you all for consideration before we surplused any items from the collection.
Thank you.
So we have reached out to Portland Community College to talk to them about the existing lease and to determine land lease and to determine what our next steps would be. We have not heard back from them at this time, but we are working through that process. We did, in reviewing the lease, determine that the building itself does not have to be open for us to be able to retain the building and the collection. So we do have some time in order to assess what is inside the collection should Five Oaks no longer exist and should we have to go into the building to assess before we would have to move out of the facility. Financial impacts of assessing the collection. This could be expensive, just being honest. We are not experts in the value of historical items. We would need to bring in experts in order to assess the value of those items. Once we did all the cataloging and made determinations about what should happen with both the written records and the physical objects, we would need to be back before the board having a discussion with all of you. Long term, we do have concerns about storage, both for the written records, but if the county decided that any of the other items were to be retained by the county, that could also lead to other problems. We do not currently have a site where we could store larger objects. So the next steps are, as I said, any changes, any decisions made by staff around the collection would be brought before the board. We are not intending that to be anytime soon. If we did declare items surplus, then we would go through our normal surplus process. As I mentioned, the Oregon Historical Society has asked that before we go through any disbursement of those items for value, that we actually communicate with surrounding museums and nonprofits to assure that as much of the collection could be supported and retained as was appropriate.
Including them?
Including them.
I didn't hear, including,
The Oregon Historical Society. Yeah.
is the 300K the expected money to get from the objects?
We have absolutely no ability to
You're
assess
just
at this point.
estimating.
more than-
So it's just,
I expect it's going to be well over $300,000 worth of value that is inside of that building. Some of these items are not ours, to be clear. We would need to look at whether or not we would be returning those. In some cases, we've taken loans from other museums. Those would have to be managed appropriately. So this is the first few steps in what I expect would be a very long process.
And value is very different than sales. I mean, I didn't hear you talking about selling anything at this point.
Correct.
Okay. Just clarification.
There's a lot going on here. And by that, I mean, we have facilities people here talking about the physical facility, and that's part of the presentation. It seems like there's a more underlying issue around what is the future of the museum from our perspectives and fund. I mean, there's sort of a funding question there that you also mentioned, at least historically, what has happened funding wise. I feel like there's a lot of different moving parts here that they all kind of relate, but they're not the same. And I'm not quite sure with the structure of what's been presented, how to work through those things in an organized way, but I think we should probably talk about that.
Mhm.
Okay, if we can just hold that for just
Sure.
a moment. How are you just about finished with your presentation?
We are through our presentation
thought.
and we're here to answer any questions
Sorry.
that you
I
have.
saw the question slide.
I
I took a small leap.
You saw it before I saw it. So thank you, Commissioner Snyder. So with that question on the table,
Mhm.
I think are there other questions that anyone would like to ask? Chair, I'm looking to see if your hand goes up. Nope, at this time. Oh, there we go. Go ahead, Chair. You're on mute.
Or you're still on mute.
Okay, my mutes are not on.
It was my
Do you
fault.
hear me?
Now we have you.
Great, thank you. If I heard staff correctly, the museum is not operating for public viewing, but the collection of the museum continues to exist, some of which includes materials that are considered or would be considered part of county archives, as well as a lot of other materials and physical items. From their assessment or their determination thus far, there needs to be an extensive process to go through the full inventory. There's the cost of maintaining or housing all of these materials, as well as costs that are involved with, as well as an effort to be managed by someone. Somebody's got to serve as the project lead to get all of these items assessed and then work through a process with various museums and nonprofits. We don't have a ceiling on this, but what they've determined is that at a minimum, it seems that there is a collection of total value exceeding 300,000. So they're asking us to authorize them to begin to determine, to scope out such a process so that they can come back to us at a future date with clarity of what that process is, who's involved, and the further associated costs of both money and time to get a thorough plan together. Am I correct in understanding that, or have I just made stuff up?
That was very clear and succinct. Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
And Chair, the question on the table right now is maybe a little bit before this, and that is what is the current status of the museum and what is the projected future of the museum?
I
Is
mean,
that correct,
y-
Commissioner Sider?
I think so, because part of what is implied by what has been said and recommended is that this is no longer going to function the way it used to. I mean, are we just taking that at face value at this point, or?
So we've been meeting with the board leadership over the last couple of weeks. I do know that the board has submitted a request to this body as to whether or not you would choose to fund that request to provide some bridge money in order to continue operations. At this time, the staff have already executed on their agreement for this year's funding. We did not allocate additional dollars. At the direction of the board, we could. That is the decision of the board for us to do a mid-year adjustment. But right now, at 6-month mark, they were without funds and unable to continue to pay for their staffing or for their ongoing maintenance of the facility.
So the recommendation is to not, from staff, is not to continue that or to do something different.
From a staff perspective, we would need to take reductions within the lottery fund to increase the funds to Five Oaks Museum. So that would mean we'd have to make mid-year reductions. Or you take it from some other place within the budget.
But you're not, I mean, you're not recommending that.
Staff are not recommending that. Staff, as your board is aware, and this is not just about Five Oaks, when I make this comment, we have, through our budget reductions that we've made over the last 4 years, had to substantially reduce some of our, I'll call it grant support to nonprofits. We have even eliminated the majority of those grant supports. Five Oaks being one of those entities that has continued. Other organizations that we've completely eliminated that funding includes Centro and others.
I just want to be explicit about that part of this discussion because sort of coming into it, sort of with that already sort of being baked in as a decision.
So
I just want to make sure we're not getting ahead of ourselves.
I don't, I have been very cautious to not bake that in. It is a board decision. If you would like to change how we are funding this organization, we can come back to you with a different discussion. In my discussions with the board leadership, there is some concern that I have, just being transparent, about the staff being fully eliminated as employees from the organization before we account for all the items within the building. They have a much deeper understanding of what is housed at this location. And there may be interest in having them help with the disbursement if we did decide to go down this path, to make sure we didn't cause harm to the collection as we were going through this process. But that, again, is at the board's discretion. This is, we have been cautious about asserting, because we do believe there are several nonprofits in the region who are in pretty dire straits, especially with current federal dollars changing. And we believe that this will open up other discussions and requests that we cannot fund.
And when you talk about the potential of utilizing current staff in this process, that's not, I just want to make this clear, that's not under the operation of the museum. That's under the process of closing the museum and dispersing
Correct.
with the articles. I just want to make sure that we're clear about that.
And that, again, is only, that is coming from me. That is not from a discussion that I've had with a number of individuals here at the county. This is me trying to minimize harm.
I feel like there's one of the proposal in there, right? It's one of the recommendation they have, and their proposal is to do what you're recommending as well.
Yeah, it was near the end of their
Then,
proposal,
yeah.
and in full transparency, when they said that they were going to submit something, I said,
Yeah.
if your concern is the collection, one option would be for you to include something that talks about this possibility. This also includes the $1,600 for changing the software to being cloud-based, so we don't lose the archive. None of us are interested in causing harm to our historical artifacts because of negligence, and that software, and probably some education and support from individuals who have been working with the collection would be helpful.
Tanya, where would you recommend we draw that? I think it's about 13K monthly through the end of 2025, or fiscal 2025, sorry. Probably gave you a scare right there saying the end of 2025, fiscal year 24-25.
So, oh,
Go ahead.
I was just going to add, so that was actually not the level that I was suggesting that we
Okay.
fund at. I'm not saying you shouldn't fund at that level, but when we were talking,
And-
it was,
Finesse with the money, I mean, the numbers you want to do, you want flexibility, okay.
if that's of interest to the board.
I mean, I trust your leadership, and you know very well the financial situations we're in, so I think I'm comfortable. with that.
I want to answer your question, Commissioner Fight, but in a different way.
Okay,
I would suggest that the board give direction to staff to move forward down a certain path, and then we would come forward. And I think the chair had kind of lifted this up. What would that look like after we met further with museum staff and determine what that pathway
yeah.
looks for transition of the collection?
Supportive of that approach. I don't know if we're like, given the framework of this discussion, I have facility questions too, but those can come later.
Let's see, Commissioner Willie, your thoughts?
Well, I think from my standpoint, it's a little frustrating that we are in this place. I mean, we all run our own finances and certainly other business organizations, we can see the train coming a lot sooner than 30 days out when the alarm was sounded. So from my standpoint, it's a little bit of a shame on the board of Five Oaks. For today, January 1 going on, we got to keep the heat on, got to keep the lights on. And yes, I'm not a fan of leaving that building vacant from the standpoint of not paying any attention to it. So yeah, whatever minimum budget allocation that you can come up with to do that and then work on, I definitely think we should be doing the cloud transfer. So yeah, I'd entertain you to come back with a budget to how we get through the next whatever, how many months it's going to be to get the inventory done.
Chair Harrington has her hand up, and then after Chair Commissioner Fye. Go ahead, Chair.
My hand is up because I don't think there's good clarity on what it is people were just saying they supported. I think we need clear statements of what this direction or this plan is, and next steps related to that.
Thank you. Commissioner Fye?
I was going to respond to Commissioner Willie. It's really rather not shame on the board. It's rather unfortunate time. It's three grants that they consistently got for the past 3 years that said, sorry, we cannot continue to fund you. So it was three grants that for the past multiple years in the past that the museum got in a significant amount of money. And this time they went different directions with those grants. And there was really no way to know. It's you apply in December after the holidays is when they send the bad news. So I don't really think that, and this is a reality for most nonprofits, you can't anticipate if you're going to get a yes or no, but you can anticipate to really say, well, you funded me a few years ago. Hopefully I'll get it. But I think that's what happened, just to give you a background story on how their situation of funding went. And it's the same story for Washington County. We consistently gave in over significant amount of money. And when we found ourselves in a tight budget, we made the reduction, and that had an impact as well after grants.
I think we gave them a couple year advance notice, though, didn't we? We were going to be face down.
So if we could move toward addressing the chair's comments about clarity.
Yeah.
Chair, did you have another comment you'd like to make?
Yes, I just can't help but say that it's quite unusual for a nonprofit to not have some level of reserves for continued operation. So to have less than 30 to 90 or 120 days of operational funding for a nonprofit is just extraordinary as an extraordinarily bad fiscal management. Nonetheless, the situation is what it is. So here we sit, the middle of February. I don't know who's paying the bills for the heat to stay on so the pipes don't burst, so the materials in that building are secured. So I'd like to get some clarity on that, and then come back to the direction that we're giving to our staff. And I'm happy to summarize that, but could we at least get clarity on, as of January 1, who's paying the utilities to make sure that the building is locked and secured and the heat stays on and pipes don't burst?
So as of right now, I believe that the museum is continuing to cover those costs, but they will run out of money soon. So our
Okay.
intention is that what I'm hearing from the board, please clarify, is that you are giving us approval to start considering the retention and the surplusing of the collection as determined based on the closing of the Five Oaks Museum. I'm also hearing support for us to come back to you with a budget for what it will cost us to get through that process, both from maintaining the collection on site, as well as possibly bringing staffing back on board in order to get through the disbursement
And protecting.
and protecting the assets.
As well as maintaining the building for the.
Correct.
This time being.
We have not
It-
given the museum under the 1987 agreement any notice that we are cessating that agreement or that we are terminating it. So we have not gone in and recaptured. We have not put utilities in the county's name, nor have we changed locks to the premises. And we would need to do that in a litigious matter through county council's guidance before we took those steps and converted things into our name, because that puts the liability on us then.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Wyman.
And what sort of time frame do you need to, Ms. Angie, to come back to us? Essentially, what is your plan for a plan? How long will it take to figure out at least a rough out schedule for going through next steps? I don't have a problem with the fact that we heard earlier it could be, a multi-year process for that full disbursement, but I would like us to know at least through the budget cycle an estimate for each fiscal year of how much the board would need to assign to this brand new project.
Thank you for the question. We would come back to your board in 60 days with the outline of a plan as best we know it of that date. More than likely, that plan would also highlight what routine checkpoints with your board would be, because this is not, this is a unique situation and staff have not been through this before either. So I don't quite know what that looks like, but expect within 60 days the first checkpoint, and we would lay out the cadence from within that 60-day check-in.
Commissioner
And
Fye?
sorry, I'm just verbally processing as I'm speaking out loud. So
But since we previously had provided a contribution to Five Oaks from the lottery fund, for what I heard earlier is for this fiscal year, that's all been transferred and spent out.
It has.
correct.
So for the work for the remainder of this, sorry, my screen just did something. For the remainder of this fiscal year, we have to figure out where that funding comes from
Correct.
through your 60-day plan.
Yep.
And as part of that, could you also find out if lottery funds might be able to be used versus just general fund moving into years ahead?
Correct. So just so that it's clear and on the record, within the 60-day plan, there would be phase one would be this current fiscal year, 24-25, as Assistant County Administrator Ann Ober indicated. All funds have for this fiscal year have been transferred and expended by Five Oaks Museum. So this would need to be in addition to those funds for this fiscal year. Phase two would be the proposed plan for fiscal year 25-26. I say that proposed because it would be in advance of your board receiving the proposed budget and subsequent phases from there, as we would know it within that first 60-day period.
Commissioner Fye, did you have a comment?
Yes. And in the material, the published material, the one pager, by the way, that was very helpful. The one pager. In your next steps, the first paragraph towards the end, it says, it is anticipated that this will be a collaborative conversation with PSU. Was that a typo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
PCC, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So Commissioner Snyder, go ahead.
Well, at some point, can we talk more about the facility part of this?
Go right ahead.
Or do you want, I mean, is now enough?
Yes,
Okay,
now's a good
sorry.
time.
I guess I want to make sure I understand what the thoughts are there. Can the facility be used by the county for other purposes, or must it be does the agreement call that it must be operated as a museum in this sort of both
So-
archival and museum public access way? And if it's not used that way in the long run, then it can't be used for other purposes? Like, what is it seems like a strategic place for the county to potentially have for use in the future. So I guess I want to understand what the implications are of that.
So the 1979 ground lease between the county and PCC clearly states that we can only use it to operate a museum and the storage of the collection and for
Okay.
no other, no other purpose. So we would not be able to use that for something else. We would then could be in default of the lease, and the PCC would have to put us on notice, and we would have time to cure that. But I think you could
Understood.
argue that having the collection there and trying to decide is still storage of that collection.
Yeah,
at
for
this point.
now, but long term, that's
right.
we're not gonna operate it like a museum and historical records, then that's no longer sort of within that scope of that term in the agreement.
Correct.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anything else? All right, so we are all in agreement that we will be receiving a plan in 60 days. And I want to say thank you very much for the work that you all are doing in relationship to this issue. It's not easy. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we are going to move on to board and leadership communication. Chair Harrington, would you like to go first?
Could we go over the things that staff added? There are 3 letters that they added.
Certainly. Aaron Doyle's coming to the table.
Thank you, commissioners, and good morning, afternoon. There are 3 letters that I had added this morning to support some of our partner organizations' requests for congressionally directed funding. Every year, this comes as a very urgent exercise that we try to accommodate as much as we can and as quickly as possible. Over the weekend, I received these 3 letters requests, and as I was sitting here, I have received a 4th letter request from the city of Tualatin that I don't even have drafted yet. These 3 letters follow the standard format that we have used over the past 5 years of the congressionally directed funding processes, sometimes shorthanded as earmark processes. They state with connection back to Washington County, our generalized support for our partners' projects, and then remind them that we do always prioritize our own requests first. So my request of the board is to give permission to finalize these letters. And if you're comfortable with it, also to do a 4th letter for the city of Tualatin related to their Borland and 65th project, which I am still learning about as I was sitting in the back of the room. But
Okay, Chair Harrington.
Thank you. I was also wondering if Aaron, I've finally found my notes from my packet printout. Aaron had sent us information on Friday, late Friday, with the chart of the requests that we have made from fiscal year 22 through 25. But it wasn't clear to me what items we, the county, would be advancing. So those are the ones prior. I don't know if this weird state of continuing resolutions and the new budget have put any of those ones in the chart at risk versus are just asking for for the county, the Scoggins Valley Park improvements, the Walnut Street Center updates, and the body worn camera and taser upgrades.
Yes, Chair. So let me dive into that a little bit. For the requests that we have that are still pending related to the fiscal year 25, which are the jail camera system and the Woodland Hearth projects, if the federal government does not approve actual appropriations, instead goes into a continuing resolution to finalize their fiscal year 25 budget, the earmarks are essentially negated. In talking with Senator Wyden's office, who put together the jail camera request, they have stated they will automatically carry those requests into the next fiscal year's budget process. Woodland Hearth was put forward by Representative Salinas. Their office has not decided how they planned to proceed. But if by March 14th, they go into a continuing resolution only, the earmarks are essentially erased. So we would be able to bring those back as separate asks if instead of these 3 additional new asks, but assuming that they would be moving forward as carryover, these new asks would be in addition to those. Is that clarifying, Chair Harrington? Okay. So there are 2 separate issues here. So there's the letters of support, and then the direction that I would like from the board is that the senators request that we prioritize our requests when we put in multiple requests. So I would need prioritization from the board. In past years, because there's very little time for contemplation and deliberation, we often just have each commissioner tell me your prioritization of the 3 items, and then I go back and I tally those scores and create the overall prioritization for the board.
And have we done that outside of this meeting? Or
In past fiscal years. So in 2025, for the fiscal year 25 requests, in a similar hurried fashion, I came to your board with those 3 projects, and each one of you provided me your preferences and prioritizations in a work session meeting. But we have never worked on prioritizing these, the Scoggins, Walnut, and Sheriff's Office requests related to a possible congressional earmark.
So you're, at this time, what you're asking from us is a prioritization of those 3 issues,
Of the 3 new
the 3 new
Earmarks.
proposals. Scoggins Dam, Walnut Creek, and the Sheriff's
Scoggins
Office.
Park.
Scoggins Park.
Thank you.
The
I'm
dam is
used to
Clean Water
saying
Services.
dam.
We will not
I apologize.
prioritize their work for them.
Scoggins Park, Walnut Creek, and the Sheriff's Office request for tasers and body worn cameras.
It's an additional
We-
equipment.
And we do not have a dollar amount on those to date. Is
Yes,
that
we
correct?
do. They're in the government relations letter that she sent us on Friday.
There
Not
are
for the-
no, for the sheriff's office, we do not have a total cost yet. That is still something that's pending for the sheriff's office, I think is what Commissioner Treese was asking about. Deputy Chief Roque is looking into it and getting updated numbers. He only has older numbers for the type of equipment they would be talking about trying to upgrade and add.
I just wanted to highlight that
Yep.
piece. Okay, so would you like to have us individually provide our priorities at this point
Yeah.
for those 3 new areas?
What's the Walnut Creek one again?
Walnut Street is the operations center. Sorry. It's the operations center that LUT has, that we did the congressional
Oh, yeah,
breakfast.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
upgrading that so that it's seismically sound and responsive if we were needing to have it in an emergency. It's one of those buildings that we would prefer to have standing so we can then go out and fix the rest of the county and other issues.
Well, there's a pretty wide spread of dollars asked in the
Mhm.
three projects, right? 'Cause-
Yes.
'cause the Walnut project is
Can you hear,
20 million.
Chair?
huge.
Yeah. So Walnut,
Yes,
it
I
would
can
just,
hear. I think what Commissioner Willie is responding to is that the total cost numbers are large. We can't ask for the total cost.
correct.
And I think that needs to be explained here.
Yeah, so essentially most earmarks that come out don't really ever exceed $2 million. So we would ask up to that $2 million to cover that portion. The remainder of the money would have to come out of all of the additional resources. Scoggins, various projects within the park upgrades have various levels of funding. And so we would make the request for that $2 million and then work with Laurel to prioritize what within the project list we would do. Walnut Street is approximately $20 million in total cost, so it's a tenth of the cost. We have other grant applications out right now to finalize that funding, as well as an ask with our state legislature. And then the sheriff's office would be 100% covered by whatever earmark we would be able to obtain at this point in time.
So the request on the first two is in the memo for $3 million each.
Yeah, did I say three? Yeah,
Yes.
that sounds like me. Be adventurous, be a.
I'm just pointing that out so that that way there's where the playing field becomes more level.
Correct.
Just from a starting place for discussion, to me, the body worn cameras are a public safety issue and something that needs to be prioritized. I view the Walnut Center project being similar in priority from a safety and operations perspective. I would love to say Scoggins Park is my number one because I like parks and all that, but I think when we're looking at the reality here, that's my priority. I guess I'll just say at the outset that I think as I thought through, the priority of what we're looking or what I'm looking for, that's where I kind of come out.
So if I may summarize, it would be the sheriff's office, then Walnut Street, then Scoggins for you.
Probably.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. I didn't hear that. Thank you for the clarification.
Mhm.
Sorry, I should have been more.
No, I'm exactly in the same place, Sheriff's Office, Walnut Street and Scoggins. What's the matter?
It's just this propagation of Walnut Creek. It's hilarious.
I started that.
It's a movie or isn't it? Isn't it? Anyway.
City.
It's a city in California.
Oh, yeah.
Sheriff,
Walnut
Walnuts, and
Street.
Scoggins. Just turn it to
Mr.
Walnut.
Hyde, did
help
you want to
everyone.
weigh in?
Yeah, that seems
What?
good,
Same.
list. Yeah, same.
Chair, would you like to weigh in?
Oh, I had the same ranking as Commissioner Snyder started with, so with the same rationale.
And I would follow suit. So thank you, Commissioner Snyder, for setting the stage here.
I don't even have to work
Yeah.
at math this
That's
time,
okay.
so thank you, commissioners.
Yeah.
We will spend the next 5 days getting those requests completed and prioritize in that order for the Senate side of this process. And then we'll see what happens with the federal budget. The second part would be related to the letters of support. The 3 that are in the packet is the first question that I have. Are you comfortable? Thumbs up. I can rewrite things if needed, but
There is a typo on the first letter in our packet. It says between Schools Ferry.
oh,
It's supposed to be Shoals Ferry,
yeah, that should be.
not Walnut Creek.
I did
but
not
Shoals
read
Ferry.
them with the amount of time we had. I did not read them at that level of detail.
I appreciate someone else doing it.
Well, I also, I didn't get past the first paragraph, but the second sentence. So in other words, going back to the first sentence in support of the city of Beaverton's request for funds for the spending request for, doesn't make sense. So I changed it to request to fund
Yes.
the spending request for the Laurel Avenue neighborhood access.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate
I
it.
mean, pending the rewrites to make them clear and clarify and fix typos, like, I think directionally, we want to be supportive.
Yes.
Mhm.
So are you all thumbs up for the letters?
And I will proofread them. Well, I'll proofread them. And before I get them signed and sent, and you will all get finalized copies. The final question is then, do I have your permission to write a similar and proofread letter for the city of Tualatin related to their requests towards their Borland Avenue and 65th?
What exactly is the project at Orland and 65th?
I am pulling up what I have. That is not Right. Sorry, I have too many pieces of paper open.
The ask in part, because this is just a few miles north of where the gentleman giving testimony this morning was referring to
Oh, that's
a
right.
different 65th project that's a couple miles south
roundabout.
of here. I just want to make sure we know exactly what we're talking about supporting.
The information I have from the land use and transportation person who is currently teamsing me, because we are working as one Washington County
Sure.
right now, it's the reconfiguration of the intersection and some minor widening at that.
Okay.
intersection.
Chair Harrington.
Yeah, I had a question about this. With regard to how much money are they asking for? And the reason that I'm interested in hearing about that is because the city of Tualatin has told us, the county, that they do not want to support providing a local match for the Basalt Creek Parkway extension.
I do not have the answer to how much their total request is. It's not included in the materials that were provided to the land use and transportation. I don't know what they're asking of the federal delegation at this point in time. I will find that information out and bring it back to you.
Yeah, so that's my only reason for hesitating in supporting their ask that we haven't seen yet. So that's all. That's my only hesitancy. So
We traditionally do not actually know what the total ask that any one of our partners is putting in. In these letters, we don't signify that information, but I will find that information out for you, Chair.
well, I just find it a tough pill to swallow that we would support them asking for something from Congress, yet they don't want to commit to supporting the continuation of that project that would help with circulation for their community. That's all.
So would you like to review these letters individually?
I'm fine if you want to give me just a generalized, or if you want to do it, I'll leave it to your board to decide.
And Chair, I'm deferring to your concern about the Tualatin letter. That's why
I'm fine with the City of Beaverton, CWS, and OIT asks through the draft letters that we've received.
okay, thumbs up on that?
Mhm.
Okay, we're all thumbs up on that. And the Tualatin letter,
I leave it to you to figure out how you want to process
are
that.
we thumbs up, thumbs down on the Tualatin letter? Or neutral in that we don't have enough information yet?
That's where I was going to head.
The challenge is they need the letter by Sunday, and I'll see if I can get the information by the time the board ends, but I don't think I have enough
No,
time.
they don't have a letter of support from us.
I was going to say
because
poor
we're not able to
planning on
do
their
it.
part, doesn't.
The system has never been set up for us to have enough time to do anything from the senators.
We received these 3 letters before we received the Tualatin letter though.
Correct.
So,
Okay.
thank you.
I appreciate your deep attention to this, and I will make sure that they are spelled correctly, reflect the board's standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. So we're at leadership communication. Chair, would you like to go?
Certainly,
you-
fine. As you all know, last week was an unusual week with our snow days, Thursday and Friday. But nonetheless, I was able to pivot at least one of my external meetings to a virtual meeting. And I had a meeting with the mayor of Durham, Joshua Drake, and have shared information with Commissioner Snyder on that. With I have some more information that I committed to send the mayor. So Commissioner Snyder, you'll see that soon. This week, as you know, I'm working remotely Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I'll be meeting remotely with the new Portland Mayor Keith Wilson. And I'm sad that I will be missing the City of Hillsborough State of the City this week. But I also wanted to give you all a heads up that you should have in your email by now, as I have received, an email from, let me read who it's from Benchmarks by Design. Tanya Angie requests your feedback. This is the survey for our county administrator's 2024 review. So if you could, excuse me, please make the time to complete this survey before the end of the day, the 27th. We each spend time working with Ms. Angie, and so I think she more than deserves our spending at least an hour on her annual performance review survey. So thank you in advance for filling that out. That's all I've got. Oh, and after this week, I'll be on vacation, returning on to work on Monday, March 3rd.
Thank you, Chair. Who'd like to go next?
I just want to say, I don't know that I've received that.
I did.
We've received the email already? I don't know.
We
that I did.
received the email, not the link to the survey.
I received the link as well. So
Oh, I didn't receive the link myself, but I did receive the email alerting to the.
Okay.
Chair, since you're out, would you like me to follow up on this? You're on mute again? I know, just we're going to see if you can be unmuted here.
I didn't do that.
What-
Somebody else is controlling it. So I don't understand what Commissioner Fye is referring to. I was referring to a new email I received yesterday, Monday the 17th, from Benchmarks by Design. Who here on the board has not received an email from them? Okay, I will let Michelle Rios know that for whatever reason, it has not been received by your two email addresses.
Thank you.
He was given your correct email addresses and the vendor was given your email addresses. Who knows? Hopefully it's not caught up in our, whatever that system is called that looks for spam emails.
Thank you. And who would like to go next?
I can go next.
Thank you.
And Chair, I did get an email from Michelle Rios. But yeah, thank you for following up with that. And thank you for saying that you didn't get Commissioner Snyder, right? So I was able to tag along. So two things. One thing already happened, and that was we raised our green card. We were just doing a vote of colors for the TV highway transit project. We voted green for the LPA, and then we also voted green as recommended by this board for the funding piece. So that took place last Thursday. The LPA passed unanimously. Everybody, all the jurisdictions approved. And then when it came to funding, one of the city partners is going to have a more conversation with the city council, and that was the city of Beaverton, and we'll come back to that among the city themselves. In terms of JPAC, the other thing that's going to happen is JPAC, and that is also something that this board has weighed in, and that is the RUFA discussion, and that will take place this week, and I will carry on the board's directives on that one too, that conversation. And then the other agenda items are not anything that is board to weigh in.
Okay, thank you. Who's going to go next?
I can. I had a one-on-one with Commissioner Willie and one-on-one with Chair Harrington last Friday. I tried to attend Senator Wyden's town hall on Saturday. All I can say is there is a lot of people concerned about our democracy and our government right now. And even though I arrived 25 or 30 minutes before the event, I could not even get into the event, even with my county credentials. So that was a very, there were probably 5 times as many people there that could be accommodated in the space. Moving on, I yesterday went to visit the OSU Extension's office in Washington County. Spent a couple hours there, have some ideas I may talk to the county administrator about, and then attended Rep Bonamici's electeds event yesterday evening before her town hall. Wednesday of this week, there's a WA board meeting that I will be attending, and then I will be at County College Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in Salem. That's all I got.
Thank you. Commissioner Willie?
Yeah. Last week I had Salmonberry Trail. Of course, that was in person. We explored Twelton Valley offices in Beaverton, offered their spot. So we had our board meeting there. We had a little problem with technology, so but we worked through that, of course. And we welcomed our newest board member, which is Dan Haig from Tillamook County, with the Tillamook Coast Visitors Association. And so we're moving ahead there. I think you probably saw something that I sent all of you with logos, and basically what that is that's we had asked our executive director to provide the old elevator speech outline, and we are also communicating that to our legislators. So that's what I had sent you, and it's a quick snapshot of where we are and what we're trying to accomplish through this legislative session. There's an ask, and also looking at for the rest of the year on, and there's a number of, if you want to go walk the learning mile, we've got one of those opportunities coming up. We've got some, and another kind of get acquainted and fundraising event out in, I think it's in Forest Grove, sometime next week as well. So we've got lots of activity that Salmonberry is doing. I attended my first Clean Water Services Audit Committee, although it wasn't a CWS audit committee. It was actually an audit committee that was going to be the last one we reviewed and had a presentation from Moss Adams, the auditor, on Clean Water Services audit. And it was a very robust discussion. It was kind of interesting to me to hear people getting all excited about an audit, but anyway, it was good discussion. And now we're moving forward, of course, in the CWS audit committee selection process. OPAC, of course, last week was online because of the snow and because of the weather. And so we had that. We had Northwest Act, of course, followed that. And I started that day with our 9 o'clock budget meeting here. So it was basically 7 hours. I was sitting at my kitchen table. It was an exciting day. But the interesting thing, Northwest Act had a presentation, and I've got some slides on it. I won't go into them right now, but they had a presentation on traffic fatalities over the last 5 years and by county. And it was interesting to see how evidently, what was it, 2000, I want to say 14 or something, that legislative instituted the seatbelt law. Seems like it should have been a long time before that. But anyway, when they did, they showed crashes, fatalities significantly decreased. And then since then, they've kind of gone up, and then they legalized marijuana, and then we had Measure 110. And in every one of those, you see spikes. And then we go into the 2020s, when there was a defund public safety, and we see another significant spike because of speed on the highways primarily. So it was an interesting presentation, and I've got some of those statistics if you want some more details to that. Last week I met with State Rep Darcy Edwards and welcomed her, of course, her first month or so in legislature, and she's moving ahead really quickly. I had scheduled a Representative McLean phone call, but she got sidetracked on that, so we didn't have that one. Fair Board meeting, the Fair Board weigh-in. You know, we're getting ready for the fairs 5 months out, whatever it is. So we have to weigh the little buggers. So Saturday was the steer weigh-in. And you can say little buggers if you want to. They weigh about 900 pounds. And they have to gain 3 pounds a day every day from now until fair. So you can do the math on that. But so it's fun. And what's most fun about it to me is the kids that are out there taking care of it. So the parents are standing back. The kids are taking them out of the trailers, putting them on the scales, and they don't do that. Those steers do not do that gracefully. They don't like it. So here you got this 80-pound kid tugging on a 900-pound steer. It's they're committed. I will say that it's a good group. It's a good way to teach kids responsibility. So this week, going to the Portland Metro Chamber Annual Forum Breakfast, and then we'll be at the City of Hillsborough's State of the City. We have restarted our small table meetings, and so that will be the 27th will be my first meeting on that one. That will be virtual, so that won't be bad. And I also have a lunch meeting with Mayor Wilson in Portland next week. So there you go.
Thank you. I'm going to go last to the commissioners and then we'll go to leadership. So last week on Thursday, I had the monthly PAB meeting. We are going to be transitioning the chair into the lead role after this last round of grant applications. So I was at the PAB meeting where we reviewed the applications. I have some questions around the application for 12 Valley Water District. I'm working through those questions with staff, and then we will go through our regular presentations on February 27th and do our Zoom grant ratings after that. I did have a little glitch. We all had weather issues. I was supposed to be on the East Coast, but I couldn't make it to the airport. So instead, I've been doing a little other work, and I showed up at the Senator Wyden Town Hall as well. I did get in.
It was good. You were.
And I got in, and the chair got in, and Commissioner Fye was there, so we were well represented. It was powerful. That's I think the term I'm going to use with that. Our community is speaking, and they're speaking loudly, and that's good. That's good news. The Monday evening last night, I also attended the Congresswoman Bonamici's. I attended the pre-town hall electeds conversation along with all four of us were at that table. We missed you, Chair. It was a good conversation, and then went on to the town hall itself. And again, a very powerful experience. This week it's a really full week. I will be visiting the Oregon Department of Human Services program site on Thursday. I've been invited by Rolanda Garcia. We work on several committees together, and she just asked me to come out and take a look at what they're doing. I'm going to be interested to do that. And then Thursday evening, I'm going to be attending the City of Hillsborough's State of the City. And then I'll be going to the Library Foundation's annual gala on Friday night. And I believe Commissioner Willie's going as well. So with that, let's turn to leadership.
Good
afternoon. Go ahead, Tanya.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Vice Chair and Commissioners. I'd like to call out the great work done by employees across the organization during our recent weather response. Due to snow and freezing rain last week, our colleagues in emergency management, land use and transportation, facilities, fleet and parks, health and human services, housing services, sheriff's office, and many, many others all stepped up to respond to the series of winter storms. Emergency management hosted a series of coordination meetings to help all agencies operating in the county with situational awareness. LUT began 24-hour operations towards the middle of last week to ensure that snow routes were accessible countywide. Housing services supported our severe weather shelters, helping over 100 people and 9 pets get a warm, dry place to sleep. Although some Washington County residents experienced power outages on the first day of the storm, particularly in the higher elevations of the county, our partners with PGE were able to quickly restore connections by the second day. If your board recalls, you only received one email that I forwarded you from PG, so that's a sign of their low outages that they had experienced. Finally, I'd like to express gratitude to our department leadership and partners with the Washington County Circuit Court who were able to adjust their work schedules as county buildings were closed for 2 days. And as always, thanks to your board for your continued support as we worked through remote meetings. And I forgot it. I went back to COVID times and had to practice some different muscle memory. And can say I like working in person. So 2 days at home, and also my kids being off. I'm glad to be sitting here right now. This week, the next 3 days, I, along with the assistant county administrators, will be in department budget presentations. This is where departments come forward and share what they are proposing in response to your board's budget direction. As your board is aware, we are aiming to increase our storytelling in the budget. And I just want to remind your board, as we are going through cuts, county services are delivering services to community members each and every day. And so I always look forward to these conversations with departments because the pride and service really comes through from our public servants across the county. And I just appreciate the work they do each and every day. So with that, you may, if you do try to reach out, email, call, or text, there may be a slight delay from me over the next 3 days. And that concludes my update.
Thank you.
And I see the chair has a question.
Chair?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Angie, I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on the impact to the state circuit courts since our buildings were closed on Thursday and Friday.
So I can't speak to specific caseload. I can get back to that caseload. But for our board, members of the public, we take seriously any time that we close buildings here at the county, because what that in essence does, it impacts our full public safety and justice system. So it is not just the courts. It is also our district attorneys. It's also prosecutors. It's also adults in custody in the jail. That full system of service is impacted. So I can get, I'll follow up in email to your board a bit more on any data stats that I can deliver to you on that.
Yeah, it was just your summary. I think we're all familiar with how difficult it is for our staff on inclement weather days to show up to their jail shifts and community correction shifts and parole and probation. But there was something about your earlier report out that talked about the pivoting of state courts that I wasn't through experience able to follow. So that's all I was trying to get to. Thank you.
Great. I'll follow up in writing.
Good. Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Harrington, Vice Chair Treese. As I often do, something Miss Angie says is related to what I'm going to say, and my update today. I was going to say, I hope you can all give me a mulligan for the week, because my brain is deep into 5 days of parenting snow day children and the Tuesday, Monday that is a short week. That is also giving me the opportunity to do that storytelling for the Office of County Counsel. So be assured the work goes on upstairs, and also you'll be getting a little update from us on one of our cases here in a moment. So not much of an update for me, but the work continues.
Thank you. Elizabeth?
All right, thank you very much. Clean Water Services Board of Directors, much like my colleagues here, the team made it through winter weather last week. We had one small sanitary sewer overflow that our field ops crew responded to promptly on Thursday in kind of the some of the iciest moments. There had been a buildup in a pipe at kind of a dead end line, and they were able to quickly address the issue without any further problems. Got flow restored, got cleanup completed very quickly. So we were happy with that. And it's just a reminder that CWS as a utility operates 24/7, and our crews are out there, rain or shine. This was my first winter weather event with Clean Water Services, and I learned a lot and just have tremendous respect for everyone that is showing up. Rain, shine, snow, sleet. Also wanted to do a shout out because February 16th through the 22nd is National Engineers Week. So it's a time when we celebrate the accomplishments of engineers, technicians, and technologists, and we are very rich with many talented engineers at CWS, including our CEO. So give an extra thanks to your favorite engineers this week.
Thank you. All right. Any further communication? All right, at this time, what I'd like to do is request, by chair, take care. I'd like to request a motion to go to executive session. It's ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub H. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?